Very much, Mr. Chair. Simply put, the title of this bill should be changed to the Electoral Dilating Democracy Amendment Bill, because that's exactly what it does. And Mr. Chair, the first substantial sentence on the front of this bill says that the Electoral Amendment Bill seeks to make amendments to the Electoral Act 1993 to improve services to voters, candidates and parties in time for the 2014 election. And, Mr. Chair, it's our argument on this side of the House that because of the way that the government has amended this bill since it first arrived in the House for its first reading, that in fact it will make life harder for voters in the 2014 election. Mr. Chair, a number of our speakers during part one of this debate asked the Minister and the Chair, why are you making the changes around the enrolment confirmation card, which most New Zealanders know as the Easy Vote card? And I do notice that we've got a new Minister in the Chair who I've found in the past to be quite reasonable in the fact that he wants things that we put in legislation to be evidence-based. I know that in other parts of legislation, such as the alcohol breath limit, that he's asked this House that everything should be evidence-based. So I would put to the Minister and the Chair, what is the evidence base for this, for the National Party to remove from this bill at the Select Committee stage the Easy Vote card that most New Zealanders have relied on for a couple of elections now, to ensure that when they go to the ballot booths on election day, most of Kiwis go to the voting booths on election day, that the experience they have has integrity, is efficient, and makes sure that they can exercise their democratic right to vote in a general election. Because, Mr. Chair, my experience has been that when constituents receive their Easy Vote card, or their, as it is called within the legislation, the enrolment confirmation card, that is their tick box to say that they are ready to go and enrol to vote in the election. Now, I know that a number of people in my electorate of Mana, when they don't get that card this time around, if they don't get this card because it's not being protected in this legislation, will be confused as to whether they are good to go and vote. Now, why would you want to cause confusion out there amongst the voters 6 months out from a genuine election, when you want to try and have your democratic process to have integrity and to encourage people to go out there and vote? And I don't expect to hear a response from that Minister and the Chair, even though I'd like to, but I guess the answer would be is that they want to discourage people from voting. And you've got to ask what kind of government that would be if they don't want people to take part in the democratic process. What kind of government do you have when it discourages people through legislation and through mechanisms through legislation, like an Easy Vote card, to not vote? And you've got to ask the question, and the question has been asked here many, many times, Mr. Chair, why has this piece of legislation changed or morphed into what it is now compared to what it was at first reading, when the Minister of Justice said that the Easy Vote card part of this bill was a key part of this legislation? What has happened between the first reading and the Select Committee stage for that to be removed? Now, the Easy Vote card is something that is pretty simple. It has someone's name, it has someone's address, as Holly Walker has said. It, for the help of the people officiating on election day, has the page number and the line of that page, so they can be easily identified to go and vote. Now, what has this government got against that? Because if they have got a problem with that, they need to tell us that. And nowhere through this committee stage, nowhere through the Select Committee stage, and I guess nowhere in the third reading stage will we get a justification, Mr. Chair, as to why this government is diluting democracy. And that's why I argue that the title of this bill should be amended, because that is exactly what this government is doing. Now, Ian Lees-Galloway has raised a number of examples as to why the Easy Vote card encourages participation. If you've got a strange looking name or sounding name, it can help, because the person officiating in the booth or at the ballot box that day has to go through the electoral roll and recognise you. And I know, Mr. Chair, that in my electorate there will be some people who, Mr. Chair,
Chris Farford.
Mr Chair, thank you very much, Mr Chair. There will be some people in my electorate who, because they don't have that card and will struggle with English, won't go and vote. Now, Mr Chair, we need to encourage every New Zealander not only just to be on the roll, but to go out and vote. But, Mr Chair, this particular deletion from the bill, which so far hasn't been explained to us, will discourage New Zealanders to go out and vote. So, Mr Chair, I do ask the Minister and the Chair if, in the closing stages of this committee debate, if he can give us some idea, evidence-based, as to why this is happening. The excuse of voter fraud has been bandied around, but there doesn't seem to, as Ian Lees-Galloway has said in his speech, to be an outbreak of voter fraud in the last 2 elections. I certainly haven't experienced it in my electorate. So, Mr Chair, to the Minister and the Chair, can he please give us a justification as to why, an evidence base, as to why this has changed in this legislation. Because in other parts of this legislation, the evidence-based approach has worked. And I did, I think, comically referred to a part of the bill that has been removed, and that is around the use of rosettes on election day. There are a number of submissions to the Select Committee that I have read that said that bringing in that piece of legislation will make no difference. So I think in that occasion the Justice and Electoral Select Committee made a very wise decision. I realise that having that piece, having that particular thing in this piece of legislation was a silly thing. So on evidence, Mr Chair, it decided to remove that, and I think that is something that that Select Committee needs to be praised for. But there doesn't seem to be, Mr Chair, a very uniform approach to use evidence-based approach to this bill when it comes to the removal of the enrolment confirmation card. So, Mr Chair, I can take another one if you want, Mr Williamson. So, Mr Chair, just in conclusion, if the Minister and the Chair, if the Minister and the Chair could change the tactics of the National Party and take a call and justify as to why the Easy Vote card has been removed, maybe we'll have some justification for something that the government is doing that I think is really being designed to suppress democracy in our country.
I call Holly Walker.
Thank you very much, Mr Chair. In what will be my final substantive contribution to the committee stages debate on this electoral